What is going on, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Smasher Reviews. This is the show where I talk about movies that could be smash hits or they could get smashed by critics. My name is Jacob Mash, and for this episode, our inaugural episode on YouTube, we are going to be talking about more movies on the smash hits side of the equation. Specifically, we are going to talk about the best movies of the year thus far. We're a little over halfway through the year. We're slightly into the month of July. And I think now is the right time to take stock of the year that we've had so far. We've had some big movies, some small movies, unexpected success, and some movies that we thought were going to be successful and really have not done well. So we've got a lot of different movies to choose from. And I'm going to tell you all of these movies are either in theaters or available to rent or are currently streaming. This is my list. This isn't anyone else's list. And I don't expect your list to be the same as mine, but I'd love to hear your list when you're finished watching the video. Write down in the comments below and make sure and tell me your list and maybe even what you think. You may have my worst movie of the year at your number one, and that's okay. And that's what makes movies so great. Before we get into the list proper, I do have a couple of honorable mentions that I wanted to throw out, movies that I really enjoyed but were just short of my top 10. One of those is Backrooms, which I thought was a really impressive directorial debut from Kane Parsons. I had a few issues with the screenplay, which ultimately kept it out of my top 10, but I certainly liked it a lot. The drama was very close to making this list. I really enjoyed this nerve jangling dark comedy, and I think that Robert Pattinson and especially Zendaya gave excellent performances. And it's a movie that I actually would like to take a second look at before the end of the year and see how well it's hold up, considering that now I know what the movie is. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die was a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, a rollicking, darkly comedic time travel story that certainly has a lot to say about our current relationship with technology. Hoppers, one of two Pixar movies that we've gotten this year, was a big surprise for me. I really wasn't expecting anything going into it, and I thought it was incredibly funny and charming, and it was also very close to making my list. And finally, Power Ballad, which is the latest effort from John Carney, who directed Once and Sing Street. And it's a movie that almost no one saw. I didn't like it quite as much as some of Carney's other efforts, but I thought it was incredibly charming and sweet with good performances and some really great music. So, without any further ado, let's get to the list proper. And the first movie I'm going to talk about is a movie that has proven to be a little bit divisive, and that is Disclosure Day, the latest film from Steven Spielberg. I have already written at length about this movie on my newsletter on Substack, and a lot of people that have seen the movie have kind of come out very puzzled by it, and I must confess that even on my first viewing, although I enjoyed it, I left with a very similar feeling. However, I think things really clicked into place for me on my second viewing, and this movie manages to produce that sense of Spielbergian wonder and optimism that infects so many things that he's done, as well as being really thematically interesting in a way that I didn't expect. Beyond that, I think it's very well made and really well acted, particularly by Emily Blunt, who I think delivers a career best performance. Disclosure Day is still currently playing in theaters, so I highly recommend you seeing it and maybe seeing it, thinking about it, and then seeing it a second time. And then if you're interested, you can check out my newsletter about it at the Smasher Reviews on Substack.com. I think Disclosure Day is a winner. The next film on my list is my personal pick for the best action movie I've seen so far this year, and realistically speaking, it will probably still be in that spot by the time the end of the year rolls around, and that is a film by Kenji Tanigaki called The Furious. The film follows two men who are fighting a child trafficking ring in effort to rescue their loved ones, one of whom lost his daughter, the other of whom lost his wife, who was a journalist that was investigating this empire. And I think the movie made a really smart decision to keep this story simple so that you can mostly focus on the action, and then they put in enough of an emotional heart and a center that grounds the movie and really makes you sympathize with the plight of these two guys. The Furious really is all about the action, though, and it produces two or three sequences at least that are truly spectacular, including a final battle that I've never seen before. If you are an action fan, I highly, highly recommend checking this one out. It's not really showing in any theaters that I've been able to find, so make sure to be on the lookout for The Furious once it hits streaming. The third film on my list is my pick for the best directorial debut I've seen this year, and that's a movie called Is God Is, directed by Alicia Harris, and it follows twin sisters who received serious burns in a house fire when they were young, and they thought it claimed their mother, but they receive a letter from their mother, and then when they go find her, she reveals to them that it was in fact their father who was responsible for their burns as well as their mother's burns, and they decide to set off on a quest for vengeance against him. Now, it's a movie that you can see a lot of different influences playing into it, but it really feels like its own thing. And even though this is a movie that is taking some big storytelling swings and sometimes feels borderline operatic, it's also very grounded and considered and even humane to a degree. I think Cara Young and Mallory Johnson do a great job in the leading roles as the two sisters, and I also have to give some flowers to Sterling K. Brown, who plays a really unsettling character in their father. The film is currently available to rent for a few more days, and then it will be able to stream on MGM Plus on July 14th. And even if you don't have that service, if you're interested in the film, I suggest getting a free trial because I highly recommend you check it out. The next movie on my list is not necessarily a small film, as it features big stars and a pretty high concept premise, but it's a movie that kind of flew under the radar. But unlike some of the other movies on this list, you can actually watch this movie right now. It is available to stream on Hulu. It's called Mike and Nick and Alice, and it's the second film written and directed by Ben David Grabinski. It stars Vince Vaughn, James Marsden, and Isa Gonzalez as three people in the criminal underworld who embark on an all night odyssey to prevent one of them from being killed. Now, if you haven't seen any trailers or promotional material for this movie, I kind of want to hold back on describing more than that because there are some twists and surprises in the film that I want to preserve for your ultimate viewing experience. What I like about this movie is that when I think of it, the first word that comes to my mind is fun. It's just a really fun movie. It's got a great sense of humor, and it actually provides some more emotion than you would expect from a movie like this. Vince Vaughn, James Marsden, and Isa Gonzalez all give really good performances, as does Jimmy Tatro, who I think is a real scene stealer in this movie. It also looks great. The action is very stylish, and the soundtrack is my pick for my favorite of the year thus far. It's a movie that harkens back to the kind of R-rated action comedies that we got in the 80s and 90s, stuff like Beverly Hills Cop and Midnight Run and the first Bad Boys movie, where they were a little smaller scale and not quite as crazy as you see nowadays. But this movie is sort of the heir apparent to that vibe. And if you haven't heard of this movie, seek it out on Hulu. It's streaming there right now. I highly recommend it. The next film I'm going to talk about is another smaller film, but it's also my pick for the funniest movie I've seen so far this year, and that is Nirvana the Band, the Show, the Movie. It's based on a Canadian web series of the same name, and it stars Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll, who also co created the series as well as co writing this movie with Johnson directing. The film follows two friends whose dream it is to play at one particular restaurant in the Toronto area, but in doing so, it ends up setting off a series of events that strain the bounds of both reality and their friendship. For as small a movie as this is, its scope is shockingly big, and there are some stunts and other things that are in this movie that I have no idea how they pulled off. And in addition to that, I think it's a very funny movie, and it shows a real inventiveness in staging all different kinds of gags. But beyond that, it's actually a shockingly sweet story about friendship. And you feel that McCarroll and Johnson have known each other for as long as they have and been friends and creative partners all through that time. If you haven't seen the web series, like myself, you can jump in and care about these characters no problem. The movie will be available to stream on July 21st, specifically on Hulu and Disney Plus, and it also has a physical release as well. So don't let this one slip by because it is a real treat. My next choice is a movie that has just completely taken the box office by storm, and that would be Obsession, the directorial debut of Curry Barker. Part of me wonders if the movie's going to become a little overexposed by how much it's across the internet in meme form, but it has such a simple and effective premise that it's really hard to deny its impact. A lot has been made about the performance of Indy Navarrete as Nikki, and understandably so, because she is amazing in this movie, managing to be both utterly terrifying and completely sympathetic. But I also think that Michael Johnston is getting a little underrated for his work as Bear, playing a really dark spin on the sort of nice guy, lovable loser archetype. The movie also has a great sense of building dread over time, courtesy of Mr. Barker, while also mixing in a very dark streak of humor. In fact, I saw this with my friend Zach, and we were laughing as much as we were wincing, except when it gets to the end, when it does get pretty dark. It is available to rent right now, and it's still playing in theaters currently. And while it's not going to be a movie for anyone that's particularly squeamish, I think it's a really exciting movie to unpack and talk about. Plus, I think Curry Barker's got a really bright future as a filmmaker. As you can probably tell by now, I didn't really rank these choices, but if I did, this next one would probably be my number one. And I think it's probably the world's number one right now, and that is Project Hail Mary. Phil Lord and Chris Miller have established themselves as some of our very best pop storytellers working today, and they consistently create beautifully made, really engaging, emotionally satisfying blockbusters, and this movie's no different. Ryan Gosling is an actor who's already one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and this is another great performance from him. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Rocky, voiced and puppeteered by James Ortiz. The two of them are delightful together, and in the way that Nirvana is about a movie about an old friendship sort of in crisis, Project Hail Mary is a movie about a new friendship blossoming, and it's all encased in a visually stunning interstellar adventure. And I'm so happy that this movie did as well as it did at the box office. And if somehow you haven't seen it, it's currently streaming on MGM Plus, and it also has a physical media release, which I will probably be picking up the 4K very soon. This movie is why we go to the movies in the first place, and I hope that this segment in this video gets maybe a few more people to see it. The next movie on my list is also about a special friendship, but one of a much darker sort, and it's the latest movie from Sam Raimi. This one's called Send Help. This one came out all the way at the beginning of the year in January, and in a month that's typically a cinematic wasteland, this was a great kickstart to the year. And in a similar way to Obsession, this is a movie that plays with both horror and comedy. But whilst Obsession has a sense of humor running through it, but is primarily very dark, Send Help is practically a comedy more than horror at points. I mean, when my dad and I saw this in the theater together, we were cackling through the entire runtime. Now, the movie maybe runs a tad bit too long and the script slightly sags in the second act, but Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are so committed to this material, and Sam Raimi continues to bring his usual goofy, slightly over the top sensibility that it all ends up working well. This is the kind of movie that you want to invite a bunch of people over and show it to them. And I really hope that this encourages a few people to do that. It's currently streaming on Hulu right now, and with this movie's success, maybe we could get Sam Raimi working in horror again for a little bit. My next choice is a movie that will likely be one of the biggest hits of the box office this summer and this year in general, and that is Toy Story 5, the second of two Pixar movies we've gotten this year. I know with the release of another Pixar sequel, there's always the question on whether or not this one's necessary to the franchise. And while I wouldn't say this is one of the best Toy Story movies, I think this one manages to justify its existence. First of all, I think bringing technology into the mix was a really smart storytelling choice, and the moments where you see how the use of technology affects Bonnie, both when she's using it and the way other people are using it, Those moments really ring true for me and worked. I like that they brought Jesse to the center stage, and I think Joan Cusack does some really lovely voice work. And I also have to give a shout out to Conan O'Brien as the character of Smarty Pants, who was a great addition to the franchise and really made me laugh a lot. And finally, to those people I know personally who think that Toy Story 4 was a cash grab and are not even interested in seeing 5, for the love of everything holy, get your head out of your rear end and check it out. If you want to wait till Disney Plus, that is totally fine. But please give it a shot. It is really, really good. We are down to the last film on my list, and this one is another smaller movie, but I think it is a real gem. It's a crime story called Tuner, and it's written and directed by Daniel Roher, who primarily to this point had been most well known for documentaries. He won an Oscar back in 2022 for directing the film Navalny, and this is his first narrative feature film, and it tells the story of a piano tuner played by Leo Woodall, who has incredibly sensitive hearing and ends up using it to work as a safe cracker for a local crime ring. He gets into it for benevolent purposes, and things are going well initially, and then, of course, things sort of go awry. It's a kind of story that you have seen before, particularly if, like me, you're a big fan of Baby Driver. But I think Roher does a great job of navigating a very tricky tone because it starts out as very light and very funny and then gets darker and darker as it goes along. And beyond that, I love that this movie focuses on character. I think Leo Woodall does a great job as the protagonist. I loved also Havana Rose Liu as his love interest that he meets during one of his piano tuning gigs. I also have to shout out Dustin Hoffman, who has the warmest and most charming role he's had in a long time. Beyond that, I think it's incredibly well made. In particular, the editing is fantastic and the sound design is so good, done by the legendary Johnny Byrne, who also did the sound for films like The Zone of Interest and Hamnet. Now, for a while, I wasn't really sure where this movie was going, and it could go a number of different ways, but it all builds up to an ending that honestly took my breath away in the theater. And when the movie ended and the credits started rolling, I honestly started applauding. Like, I just was so impressed with what they had done. It is currently available to rent online, and if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It is wonderful. And that's all I've got for my list of the best movies of the year so far. I want to thank everyone for watching. What are your favorites? Let me know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you never miss another one of these videos or plenty of out of the theater reactions that I will be doing ever again. If you want to follow me elsewhere, I'm also on Substack at thesmasherreviews.substack.com. There I write a lot of written criticism, and I've written reviews of, I think, most of the movies that I covered in this video, including my most recent one, which is a very long piece on Disclosure Day, unpacking everything about it. Also, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram at jmash.moviebuff, and I'm also at Letterboxd at Jacob Mash, just my name. And that one, you can see what I'm watching. And if you want a detailed ranking of everything, you can find that there as well as plenty of other things. And thanks again for watching. And with that, so long and keep on movie watching.